New videos every day.
Hi there, and thank you for tuning in to Simple Science. My name is Corrina, and today I'm going to give you 7 very simple recommendations, things that you can apply in your everyday life and should hopefully not be too difficult or too demanding. The idea is that these are simple recommendations that should help you to feel more healthy. The first recommendation actually has nothing to do with food at all. It has to do with water. Now, as we all know, water composes 80% of our body and is involved in every single chemical process that our body does. So water is crucial in our bodies because it is the transport system for all of the other nutrients and proteins, anything else that we are digesting or putting into our bodies otherwise. Water is the vehicle that carries it around and helps it move around. It's also part of every chemical process that our bodies are doing. So water, you want to drink as much of it as possible. They've given us that guideline of 8 8-ounce servings per day. Don't think of the numbers. The numbers can be really overwhelming. You don't need to be counting your number of glasses of water. Just focus on drinking as much water as possible. And when you can, substitute water for other drinks. Substitute water for soda. Soda is the number one source of calories in the United States right now, and it is contributes 41% of what they call excess calories to our diet. So when they look at how our caloric intake has fluctuated since past decades, they contribute almost 50% of the extra calories that we're consuming to soda alone. So if you can replace your soda consumption with water, you will see very immediate results, and lots of people actually have reported of cutting out soda and they literally see their weight starting to decrease. It's hard to think about soda contributing to weight gain because it's just a liquid, and it's easier to think about French fries. Okay, French fries are probably going to create fat in the body, but soda itself does as well. And in our other video where I'll talk more about sugar, we'll kind of get into exactly how that works. But again, that first recommendation is to drink as much water as possible, eliminate sodas, eliminate coffee and juices as much as you can. But when you do drink coffee, go ahead and drink twice the amount of water afterwards. Coffee actually dehydrates the body, and so after you drink it, sometimes it'll leave you feeling thirsty, and rather than reaching for more coffee, go ahead and drink some water. Also, when you have a headache, or when you're feeling that feeling of thirst, quench it with water. Don't quench it with some sports drink or other soft drink. Those things are only going to fuel your cravings and not really quench your thirst. Recommendation number 2 actually has to do with how we eat. Recommendation number 2 is to become more conscious of your eating, more conscious of your hunger and of feeling full. Not to eat while you do other things. A lot of times we'll eat while we're watching TV, eat while we're studying, things like that. And that will actually kind of over time condition your body to want to eat every time you watch TV or every time you're studying. So separating that time that you spend eating and doing it more consciously will help bring your body not only more gratification from eating, but also to help your body learn to distinguish when you're really craving food because you're hungry or when you're just craving doing that thing, which is eating. Another aspect of eating more consciously has to do with chewing and chewing more slowly. Not only does chewing slowly assist in digestion because it's breaking your food down more, giving it more time to interact with the hormones in your saliva that help to break it down, help it digest. But it's also going to, of course, slow your process of eating and give your body more time to kick into that feeling of feeling full and recognizing that you don't need to eat anymore. Some people like to actually count the number of times that they chew each bite, and they'll start by, chew each bite 30 times before swallowing. Again, don't get too fixated on the numbers. It's not the number of times that matters, but the actual process of chewing more and chewing more slowly that's going to help you out. If you're able to put your fork down or force yourself to put your fork down some way midway through your meal and give your body a minute to catch up with itself, to really register whether it's still hungry or actually if it's satisfied or not. This also kind of ties in with the idea that as often as possible, you kind of want to premeditate hunger. You don't want to wait to that point where you're so hungry that you'll just eat anything, that you are just gobbling up your food so fast that you don't even think about it, and you get to the end of your food and you just pass out. something like that. If we are actually eating before we get to that point, it's easier to be more conscious about the things that we're eating, to eat more slowly, and really be cognizant of when we're feeling full, when we're feeling satisfied, and when we can stop eating. Recommendation number 3 also deals with the way that we eat, and it is to integrate as many raw, fresh foods into your diet as possible. And one kind of general rule of thumb with that is maybe for every processed food you eat or every meat that you eat, to go ahead and pair it with something either lightly steamed or completely raw. Not only do raw fresh foods help you digest all of the other foods, they provide all the energy that we need, the nutrients and vitamins that we need, so that our bodies can deal with maybe the less healthy things that we're eating. Now again, when you're consuming vegetables, the ideal form for most vegetables, now not all of them, but for most of them, is to consume them completely raw. From there, if you do need to cook them, lightly steaming them with a little bit of butter is always a really good way to make them good. But remember that the longer you cook them, the more they're going to start losing those enzymes, denaturing those enzymes, kind of losing some of those nutrients that are so important. So the least amount of time that you can cook or steam something, the better, is kind of a good general rule of thumb there. To kind of recap some of those very important aspects of fresh raw foods, we talked about the enzymes that are there not only to catalyze other chemical reactions in the body, but to catalyze the very breaking down of that food that you're consuming, the nutrients and phytonutrients that they contain. Now again, photosynthesis creates glucose in those plants, and glucose is our body's energy. So that pure glucose coming straight from the plant is our most optimal form. There's also fiber, which is important not only for transmitting things throughout the body, but also for initiating a lot of these different hormone responses that help us tell when we're full or when we're not full, help us digest and assimilate, and all that good stuff. Now, recommendation number 4 has to do with everyone's favorite thing, sugar. Sugar has been around for a really long time, and I will look deeper into sugar and its history in another video. But point number 4 deals with sugar, and not only do we want to cut down on sugar as much as possible, but we want to eliminate completely artificial sweeteners. Artificial sweeteners like Splenda, aspartame, Sweet and Low are far worse for you than actual sugar itself. Again, I'll get into this in another video, but essentially these artificial sweeteners do not initiate the insulin response that is required for your body to properly assimilate and respond to sugars. Now, the insulin response is not only important for transmitting and carrying these glucose molecules to different parts of the body so that they can be used, but it also kicks into gear these different hormonal responses that tell us when we're full and tell us when we're not. When you are craving sugars, you're not going to get the same satisfaction out of artificial sweeteners, and you're going to probably continue eating more and more and more of them. So diet sodas is one of these huge contributors to artificial sweeteners. They were also going to find artificial sweeteners in anything that says sugar-free, a lot of things that are low-fat, again, all those little pink and blue sugar packets at the table and everything. So when you have those sugar cravings, go ahead and go for the real sugar. Not only is it more likely to actually satisfy the craving that you're having for sugar and prevent you from continuing to continue to consume these sweetened treats, but it's also going to have a more natural response in your body. Artificial sweeteners not only are going to produce an unnatural response in the body, but they have also been found to be neurotoxic in several cases, can cause headaches, nausea, fuzzy thinking, and other neurological kind of responses that way. It's very scary because they actually can affect the way that your body synthesizes proteins, creates your DNA, and a lot of these processes that have lots of implications on your health and general wellness. Now, sugar, while it certainly isn't healthful, is something that your body knows how to deal with and knows how to break down and will set off the appropriate insulin response needed to not only satisfy your craving and give you that feeling of feeling full and satisfied, but also to appropriately deal with the sugar and assimilate it, get rid of it as needed so that less of it is stored as fat. Recommendation number 5 has to do with the thing that most of us are all concerned about, kind of that buzzword of dieting, and that is fats. Now, there's a lot of confusion surrounding fats because there are a lot of different types of them, and they all react different ways in the body and stuff like that. There's all kinds of low-fat diets, low-carb diets, low-sugar diets, all these different kind of terminologies that they throw around, and it can get very, very confusing. The message that I'm going to recommend to you today, which is hopefully a pretty simple one, is to avoid trans fats. Now, of course, we'll talk more about fats and trans fats in another video, but the recommendation here is to avoid trans fats as much as possible. Now, trans fats are created by a process called partial hydrogenation, whereby they take an oil and put it through a series of processes so that it will become a solid. Perfect example here is butter and margarine, where margarine is taken from an oil and then partially hydrogenized so that it will form that semi-solid state and, can be used as a spread and things like that. It just has that different consistency, but is way less healthy for you than butter. Now, granted, butter isn't particularly helpful for you, but margarine is way, way worse. This kind of relates back to the idea with sugar and the idea that while sugar itself is not that healthful in and of itself, it's not nearly as bad for you as its artificial counterparts. Now, another problem with trans fats is that it alters your level of cholesterol. Now, cholesterol is another one of those buzzwords of the dieting and health foods industry, where there's kind of a lot of confusion surrounding what cholesterol really does and why it's important to us. Cholesterol in itself is a necessary part of our bodies. It is a component in cell membranes and is transported in various forms to the body so that your body can use the fats that you need. Now, you've got one type of cholesterol that's responsible for transporting fats to the different organs of the body so that it can be used, and another type of cholesterol that takes that fat away from the body and disposes of it when it's not used. These trans fats or partially hydrogenated oils actually increase the amount of cholesterol that's carrying fats to your cells and decreases the amount of cholesterol that's taking the fat away and disposing of it. So not only are these fats hard to break down, but they're actually threatening that system that your body uses to make sure that fats are being taken away from your cells when they're not needed and disposed of properly. You need to look on the back of food labels to find trans fats in most cases. Anything that contains partially hydrogenated oils contains trans fats. There's a lot of issues with the labeling. It's not always going to be labeled very clearly, but if you read those ingredients on the back and see partially hydrogenated oils, that is a sign of trans fats, and you want to try and avoid those as much as possible. Recommendation number 6, again, getting away from the actual foods themselves and on to exercise. Now, exercising is one of those things that you got people out there that do it every single day. They've dedicated their whole lives to it. They really, really, really love it. It's the main thing that they do, and that's wonderful. And then there's the rest of us, where exercising is maybe a little difficult. Either you don't have time, or you don't really know where to go or what to do. You don't have the motivation to go to the gym, or whatever. Exercising kind of poses this issue. But it's really, really important, and we need to try and be doing it as much as possible on a regular basis. Now, something as small as going on a 20-minute walk around the block, taking the stairs instead of the elevator, all of these little things our body will appreciate, even if we don't necessarily feel or sense that we're doing something really huge. It really is those little things that count. Now, research has shown that a minimum of 30 minutes to 1 hour of physical exercise per day is kind of a general guideline to get that minimum benefit of working out and exercising. But for some people, that's not always logical. So again, we come back to just do what you can. Whether you've just got your own home practice of stretching or doing crunches, doing yoga, or you're going for walks in the evenings, things like that, all of that will contribute to your health and not only making you more healthy, but increasing and improving your emotional state and your happiness and all that good stuff. Now, I've talked in previous videos about sunlight and how sun imparts its energies to plants, and then plants impart that energy over to us. Another really important aspect of the sun is vitamin D. Now, we get vitamin D from some other nutritional sources. You can also supplement with vitamin D. But vitamin D from the sun is really, really, really important. And we want to try and be getting some vitamin D from the sun every day. It's important to recognize that when you're wearing sunscreens, your vitamin D absorption is going to be affected. Depending on your lifestyle, you can kind of adjust your use of sunscreen in that way. Now, if you're somebody who works out in the sun all day long, every single day, sunscreen's going to be pretty important. But if your sun exposure is pretty minimal, you might want to question your use of sunscreen or investigate it a little bit further, because you want to make sure that you're getting 15 to 20 minutes of good direct sunlight each day. Now, I think I've also heard a general rule of thumb is that it takes 15 minutes to tan and 20 minutes to burn. That's kind of maybe a threshold for some people. But if you can get yourself 15 to 20 minutes of good sunlight per day without the use of sunscreen, that's another really good guideline for helping, again, your emotional and physical health. So that brings us to our last recommendation, which is to be sensible about listening to your body and use moderation. So certain things we want to listen to our body about. When you feel thirsty, drink water. Your body isn't thirsting for cola, your body is thirsting for water. And if you feel a genuine feeling of thirst, you're not going to quench it with a sports drink or a soda or anything like that. You want to quench it with water. Headaches as well are often a sign of dehydration, and whenever I am feeling a headache coming on or any onset of a headache, I will just chug down a couple glasses of water and kind of try to relax, take some deep breaths, all that good stuff to see if maybe that quenches the dehydration and can maybe cure the headache. Listening to your body also involves listening to it and knowing when you're hungry, when you're full, kind of starting to maybe become just more attuned to recognizing when you're craving food because you're really, really hungry, or when you're just craving a snack because you want to eat or you're bored. Again, I talked a little bit earlier about kind of when we condition ourselves to eat while we're watching TV, or eat while we're studying, or eat while we're doing other things, that then sometimes doing those things alone will cause us to want to eat food even if we're not hungry. Now, the reason that this recommendation is be sensible about listening to your body and not just listen to your body is because we also want to recognize that the food industry has thrown in a couple of different tricks of the trade to actually make us crave certain foods or grow addictions to certain foods and certain food chemicals, because for them it really comes down to the bottom line of money. They want to market to us, they want us to buy it. Things that we see the most advertisement for aren't often the most healthy things, but these food companies have learned what they can put in the foods to make us want more of them, to make us feel unsatisfied by them, because they want us to keep eating. For our health, they don't want us to keep eating, but for their pocketbook, they do. So sometimes if we feel really strongly that we're craving something, if we investigate it a little bit more, or maybe try to satisfy it with something more direct. So if you're craving sugar, eat a fruit. If you're craving a drink water, things like that. We can maybe sideswipe some of these chemical addictions or cravings that we're feeling and really get to the heart of the matter, which is the food itself. Thank you so much for tuning into Simple Science. I encourage you to stay posted with more of our videos. I will be going into more detail about each of our 7 topics, as well as other topics of health and nutrition, emotions, and physical fitness, all the things that contribute to the way that we feel on an everyday basis and the way that we approach our lives and our lifestyles.
If you liked this video, we have hundreds of more alternative videos ranging from sexual health to psychology to mind control. So if you liked it, go ahead and click on me to enter the Psychetruth channel.